It's time for the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online for all your website needs at sonicwebstudios.com. The Mike Wagner Show brings you interesting people doing interesting things all across the globe. Now, let's get started on the Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com. Mike Wagner with you here on the Mike Wagner Show, powered by sonicwebstudios.com. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Call today at 800-303-3960 for fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Mention the Mike Wagner Show and get 10% off your first order. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can also be heard on themikewagnershow.com. Also on the Facebook page, facebook.com/The Mike Wagner Show. You can also hear the Mike Wagner Show on SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. And joining us from beautiful sunny California, he played Chip on the beloved classic TV show My Three Sons for 12 years, of course, going back to 1960. Of course, you know, imagine what times were like. He's also appeared in many movies, TV. He's been on stage. He's also got his own production company, and he's been a writer, producer, and, of course, he's also a big fan of some quartet that is over the ocean on the Atlantic. Of course, he's been around the block, and, of course, he'll just tell you all about it. The very talented Stanley Livingston. Stanley, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Mike, how are you?
Hey,
Thanks for having me on.
Hey, no problem. I'm doing great here. Of course, you know, you're known for playing Chip on My Three Sons, of course, along with your adopted brother, Ernie, which is actually your actual brother, Barry. And, of course, you also have been doing the show for 12 years. At the time, it was the longest running. You also appeared in many movies like Attack of the 60-Foot Centerfold, Please Don't Eat the Daisies. We'll get to all that. You're also a writer, producer, and you own a production company. And first of all, before we get into the classic TV show, it started in 1960, ran for 12 years with a very famous actor at the time who was comparable to Tom Cruise. Tell us how you got started.
Well, I got started basically like most people do in the industry as an extra. I went to a swim school in Hollywood, and it was kind of populated by a lot of Hollywood-type people, producers, directors' kids, and agents' kids, and there was an agent there, and she saw me. I was very extroverted, and I guess she thought I was a good candidate, maybe to be a child actor, and somehow talked my mom into sending me out on a couple things. And the first couple things I got, I didn't have any lines, but I got my feet wet being on a set and saw what it was like. And I ended up getting cast as an extra on Ozzie and Harriet, The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet, which is a very popular TV series throughout, the 50s, 60s, and even into the 70s. Ozzie and Harriet actually is the longest-running sitcom on TV. It went 14 years. My Three Sons is the second longest-running sitcom on TV, running 12 years and almost 400 episodes. So what happened was I got on the set, and the storyline was Ozzie, to make some extra money at Christmas time, was selling Christmas trees out of his backyard. So he had this mini forest, and he's selling a Christmas tree to somebody when, lo and behold, all these little kids, neighborhood kids, had been camping in his little forest. So we all came out with backpacks and sleeping bags. And we did the scene a couple times. And Ozzie came up to me and wanted me to say a line. So he gave me a line to say, which was, "Sure was mighty good camping in there, Mr. Nelson." And I said the line. I guess I impressed him the way I said it. And I remember later in the day, he went up to my mom and said, "I want to have him back." And, you hear that a lot in show business, and then that never happens. But in this case, it actually did. And he started using me as a neighborhood kid on the show, starting about, I guess it was 1956. And I would say from 56 to 1960, I did probably 3, 4, 5 episodes of Ozzie and Harriet every year as a neighborhood kid, and got bigger and better parts on that show. And because of the Ozzie and Harriet gig, there was a guy on a soundstage next door shooting a TV series, a man named Jackie Cooper. I don't know if that name rings a bell, but he was one of the original Little Rascals. Mm-hmm. And by that point, he was probably in his mid-30s and had become a pretty big TV producer and TV director. And when he was a kid, he starred in, besides being in The Little Rascals, he starred in a movie when he was 9 years old called Skippy. And I don't know what gave him the idea, maybe seeing me, or maybe he was already planning to do that. But he wanted to do a TV pilot and see if he could sell Skippy as a TV series. And I got hired to play the title character in that. Anyway, I did the pilot. It was a half-hour-long pilot, and waited for it to be sold for about 2 years while I did other things. I started doing movies. I did Please Don't Eat the Daisies, Rally Around the Flag Boys with Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward, and some other movies of that era. And meanwhile, this Skippy pilot was being passed around Hollywood to different agents and producers, and the producers of a show to be called My Three Sons saw it and wanted me to come in and meet me. And anyway, I went in, and they wanted to hire me on the spot, but the pickle was I was under contract to Jackie Cooper for another year. So,
oh, wow.
But I know. So he graciously let me out of the contract to go do the pilot for My Three Sons, which sold and went on to run for 12 years, which is very significant. And unfortunately, Skippy slipped into the abyss, never to be seen again, at least by me, till last week of all things. This is the weirdest story. There was a kid who was also on the show on Skippy that played my best friend. And I hadn't been in contact with this guy in 50 years. And I guess he found me on Facebook. And, of course, I recognized his name. And my mom and his mom were fast friends back in the day, late 50s. And so we started talking. And, we were talking about Skippy. And I said, I never saw it. I remember being on the set. I remember working with Jackie Cooper. I remember who played my dad, who was kind of a prominent TV actor named Edward Binns. If you've ever watched The Untouchables, then you probably know this guy, and he starred in a lot of movies too. But anyway, I said, I never saw it. He goes, well, I have a copy. I'm like, you're kidding. I never could get a copy. I said, I went to Jackie Cooper's house when I was probably in my mid-30s, and we were rummaging through his attic and his garage and never could find the print. So I never saw it. Anyways, so we made plans to get together, and we did. Last week, he came down, brought this DVD, and so I finally saw the work I did that, in a TV series that I actually starred in and was the title character and probably dominated. I probably had 90% of the screen time, and I just turned 8 years old. So, I was blown away by it, to say the least. I could see, at least being a producer now or director, why producers and directors wanted me. I was an interesting character at that age. So, it's weird to see something that really defined your life, really, and they never, saw the fruits of my labor. It just disappeared into the ether. And anyway, the other thing, this guy's name was Jay Potter. And anyway, when Jay came over last week, he not only brought the DVD, but he had the film reel of it.
Oh, my goodness.
So I think that's the film reel that Jackie Cooper was probably looking at, and I have no idea how his mother got it. She was, I think, an agent or manager at one time, and maybe was using it to show Jay's work, and everybody just assumed I had a copy. And like I said, not only did I not have a copy, I never saw the finished product. And I was, so anyway, that got me on to My Three Sons, and My Three Sons went for 12 years, and who knew? I'd starred Fred MacMurray, who, for listeners out there who don't know who Fred MacMurray is, it would be like I said, it would probably be like getting Tom Cruise or Harrison Ford to be the dad on a show, on a TV series. It was unheard of in 1960 that a movie star of his caliber would even be on TV. So, it was a pretty big deal. And because of that, the networks handled our show with kid gloves, and it went on, and ultimately we did just short of 400 episodes.
Wow. And of course, just about everybody was intact, including Tim Considine, William Demarest, Tina Cole, William Frawley, and of course your brother. And of course, 12 years, that is so unheard of. And of course, the big question is, how do you manage to stay together for 12 years without too much fighting or drama makes you wonder that.
Good ratings.
That helps, yes.
Yeah, that does. My Three Sons was, I would say generally in the top 10. Occasionally it might make number one, but, it was always in the top 10. I mean, you could probably even sink as low as the top 50, and you're going to stay on TV. Once you're below that, they're looking to replace you with something like My Mother the Car or something. I don't know.
Or Attack of the 60-Foot Centerfold.
Yeah. I don't think that would have quite made it to the TV era I was in.
I'm kidding.
Much more wholesome. Although that was a fun movie to make. A buddy of mine made it, and somehow I ended up in it. But I guess I was doing him a favor. I think somebody else was supposed to do that part, and they bombed at the last minute. And I got a call, and he said, "Hey, can you do me a favor? I'm doing this movie." And I'm like, yeah. And, I thought he was going to tell me it was in a couple of weeks. I said, "So when is it?" He says, "Well, you'd have to be there tonight at like midnight. We're shooting all night long."
Oh, my gosh.
I know. So anyway, trusty old me showed up and did my part, which was actually kind of cool because I was in a scene with Russ Tamblyn.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you know who he is. He was one of the Jets in West Side Story.
Yes, I remember that.
And he was in a movie called The Haunting, I think it was, with Robert Wise film early on. Really, great actor. And actually, we didn't work with each other, but we were both in the Cinerama film, How the West Was Won. He played the rebel in it that gets killed by George Peppard when he's going to shoot Ulysses S. Grant.
Mm-hmm.
And I played the son of George Peppard and Carolyn Jones in the movie, in the last third of the movie. So anyway, we were, both in that particular Cinerama film, which was a pretty big deal back in 1963, I think it came out, and was in all 360 Cinerama theaters. And a lot of people don't know what Cinerama is, but it was the process that led to widescreen, in the movie theaters. Before that, even movies were in that 3x4 format. So this prompted widescreen and even wider screens.
And wider and wider and wider and wider.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
And of course, how was Cinerama viewed at the time too? Was it like just futuristic? Would it have been a bomb or something? Or how did people take Cinerama at the time?
At that time, they were excited to see it because by 1953, when the first Cinerama films came out, people were defecting from the movie theaters into their own homes to watch this new fangled thing called television,
mm-hmm.
which by 53 was in a lot of homes. So, the movie theaters are closing left and right, and they needed to come up with a gimmick to get butts back in seats, and they came up with this idea of something really huge, which turned out to be Cinerama. It's a process where three cameras
mm-hmm.
are actually locked together. There's a center camera, a left and a right, and they crisscross each other, but it makes a very wide panoramic, vista when you're shooting. So it really is impressive. And if it's shown on a Cinerama screen, that's even cooler because the Cinerama screen is actually, it's kind of an arc.
Mm-hmm.
It's a curved screen. So if you're sitting at the right place in the theater, like maybe about halfway up and closer, you get the sensation of almost like reality.
Mm.
The way I can liken it for people who haven't seen it is, when you're driving in a car, how when you're looking straight out the window, that's where you're going. But on your periphery vision, everything is whizzing by.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's kind of what Cinerama emulates. It, kind of really emulates that really well. So the feeling of movement through space is really accentuated, very close to human vision. So it really makes it exciting. And the first 4 or 5 Cinerama films kind of took advantage of that. They really didn't have any story. They were more like travelogues and took you to places where you could ride on a roller coaster, go down a ski hill, and it was pretty dramatic because you would have the sensation, like I said, of on your periphery vision, all this stuff whizzing by you, and the screen was huge. So anyway, it eventually gave way to, trying to apply that process to storytelling. And anyway, a couple films were done that way. There was the Brothers Grimm film, The Wonderful World of Brothers Grimm, which actually Russ Tamblyn was also in, now that I think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then How the West Was Won, which was this amazing Western that was made in 1962, 63 that literally starred everybody in Hollywood. I mean, the cast list is incredible. Everybody from Henry Fonda, Jimmy Stewart, Gregory Peck, Debbie Reynolds, Walter Brennan. I mean, anybody who was a star in that